Project Veritas, founded by investigative journalist James O'Keefe, has released a new series of videos this week that has caused a little bit of a stir throughout social media and undoubtedly over at CNN. Undercover footage taken shows CNN employees claiming that the Trump-Russia hysteria is a ratings chase, to the surprise of almost no rational mind. When mentioning new employees with ideas of ethics, John Bonifield said that it was adorable, alluding to the clear lack of ethics over at CNN. Many are skeptical of James O'Keefe, expressing their concern that the footage was deceptively edited. John Bonifield works for CNN Health as a supervising producer, which some take to mean that this invalidates his statements. I disagree. Large companies generally keep everyone on the same page with consistent meetings. John Bonifield even mentions going to a meeting like this in the footage. The next day would lead to two releases, the first one featuring Van Jones outside of a CNN building as someone holding a camera approached him. When asked about the Russia thing, Van Jones replied that it's nothing burger. People, even Philip DeFranco, seemed skeptical of this clip as it wasn't clear what the context of the Russian thing was. Another thing brought up was that Van Jones said in a live stream a few days previous to the release of this footage that the Russia investigation isn't something worth dedicating everything to, that it was worth it to move on and focus on more important issues. This was used as a way of invalidating the nothing burger comments, but I personally don't think they do. What we see, given the context of content CNN's wall-to-wall coverage of a story with no evidence beyond hearsay, speaks for itself. Or it ought to.
A conservative activist named James O'Keefe has released another selectively edited tape today, this time targeting CNN political commentator Van Jones. Van's going to weigh in on it for the first time in a moment, but first here's what O'Keefe chose to publish from the secretly recorded conversation.
Hey, man. We met in Palm Springs a few years back.
Good to see you, man. You good?
Yeah. How you been? What are you doing? What do you think's going to happen this week? I mean, with the whole Russia thing.
The Russia thing is just a big nothing burger.
Really?
Yeah.
In a way of dismissing the footage shown, he calls James O'Keefe an activist, even though James O'Keefe is an investigative journalist, something that they don't really have over at CNN. In fact, they don't even know what journalism is. They just know what spin is. And second, they say that this clip was selectively edited. All clips are selectively edited. You notice he didn't say deceptively edited, because then he might have actually had to back it up. Things got even more interesting as a Washington Post article on James O'Keefe accused the original footage from the first day of neglecting to mention that the footage was taken in Atlanta. The author, Paul Farhi, his point was that Atlanta was not a major CNN office. Therefore, it invalidates all of the statements that were made. Actually, Atlanta is where the CNN headquarters are. Oddly enough. Regardless, the original video actually does include James O'Keefe introducing the video and citing the location. James contacted the author directly, informing him of his mistake, but Paul was unsure of correcting the article. It was strange to say the least, a so-called journalist that essentially refused to correct a factual mistake in his article. It also begs to question whether or not he actually watched the video he wrote an article on. Keep in mind that this author, Paul Farhi, this journalist, works for a major news outlet, the Washington Post. He is misinforming people, and O'Keefe likely has a solid libel case. Farhi even sent O'Keefe a rather hostile email confirming that he will not fix his factual inaccuracy in his article, despite being informed directly by the person he wrote about. The next video featured O'Keefe outside of Jeff Zucker's home, president of CNN, waiting for him to come outside to get a comment from him. Zucker ran away and jumped into his car without a comment. O'Keefe did mention the address of Zucker, which some called a dox, and naming the address was a part of this approach that I personally disagree with. But I have to admit the footage of Zucker ducking into his car to avoid O'Keefe is priceless. The final video for the week until after the holidays is one with two stories that should have been two separate videos. One shows another CNN producer, Jimmy Carr, calling Trump voters stupid, Donald Trump insane, and he said that Kellyanne Conway looks like she got hit in the face with a shovel. These are all tame statements from the left, to be honest, but I have to say there is no way that Conway looks more fucked up than Pelosi. Anyway, the video of Carr saying some mildly vicious things about the American people should be upsetting. It is to be expected of the TMZ of news, which is CNN. The other part is possibly the biggest story O'Keefe broke this week. Recently, CNN did a panel featuring Trump supporters and asking what their grade was of the president. The raw audio was leaked to O'Keefe, who noted in the video that it was almost an hour and a half long, even though that the clip shown on CNN was only 8 minutes long. Apparently, they cut off one of the guest's citations of information when asked about the alleged voter fraud. He mentioned James O'Keefe specifically, and the work that Project Veritas did exposing the alleged voter fraud in the 2016 election. Cutting this out, they make the clip appear as though he had no information on the matter. That perhaps he just believed it because he heard it somewhere. Seeing is believing. O'Keefe's footage shows that CNN cut out the man's response in order to paint him as some sort of conspiracy theorist. Whether you like James O'Keefe or not, it is important to judge this footage on the basis of its own merits. The footage speaks for itself, and to anyone who has been keeping CNN under a skeptical lens, this isn't any new information. Here is proof that CNN is a tabloid news organization, no better than the Weekly World News. Hell, at least Weekly World News knows what they are, full of shit. I fully expect another series of videos next week, but I guess we will see.